Welcome to the Cleary Minds podcast. I'm your host, Tom Egan. Here, the classroom meets the real world, and we talk with leaders and changemakers. Let's get into it. Introducing Howdy. You want to introduce yourself?
Yep, sure. I'm Howdy Holmes. I am the former president and CEO of Chelsea Milling Company. Now I am the cultural and strategic advisor for Chelsea.
I love that title. And thank you for sharing your story and words of wisdom with our students today.
It was fun for me.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
It took me a while to realize that these are not kids, but they're not adults either.
Yeah.
They're tweeners.
Yeah.
So I know I caught myself a few times. I might have said shit once or twice by mistake. Or no, not by mistake. That's me.
Yeah. They absorb everything, so it's good. Yeah, so I thought you had several messages for our students, and one of the big ones was that, who they are is important. And you really wanted them to kind of approach life and understand a few things. And you gave some 10 sort of lessons of life of being human that you felt were important for them to know. How might you sum up those lessons for us here?
Okay. The message I tried to send is, there are a stage in life where there's a lot of uncertainty, right? And so my effort, Tom, was to kind of say, you're doing better than most, right? The average person is not in college, right? You need to kind of recognize that you have choices, and you need to follow those choices. So I think that the development, if you will, of 20-something-year-olds is a fascinating time in anyone's life.
Yeah.
Of course, they know absolutely everything about everything.
Yeah.
No.
Well, but you also encourage them jump in and make mistakes. In fact, the more mistakes you learn.
Well, that was just it. That's the opposite of, look, this is how the world works, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 60.
Yeah.
These are general rules that we all have to follow.
Right.
And the more we understand how we learn things, the better it is that we get over this big heap of fear.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I think I didn't say it in the second one, but because we've been given the reason or the ability to reason, we want to know how a change is going to work out
Ahead of time.
before we start. Well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, and you anchored it in all of these initial jobs and jobs along the way that you had, from serving tables to ski lessons, all of those things. And, most students are thinking about like building their resume with skills, but you said even more important than that is you're observing and taking in what you see in the people around you. I thought that was a great awakening. It's not just the skills, but it's the life lessons you're learning from people.
I think for it's not right or it's not wrong, but I think the path that we've all been taught over the last 60, 80 years is, look, you need to get a college education. This is going to take you to so-and-so. And number one, I'm not sure that that's true.
Yeah.
Number two, what about the rest of the world that can't for some reason or another? What are we going to do? How are we going to make equality the same for them? Mm-hmm. Because they don't. It's not the same. There seems to be a resurgence to schools that are a little different than the 4-year academic, technological schools and stuff like that. Not everybody's going to be a professor.
Right.
Not everybody's going to be a advertising executive.
Right.
There's a need for all type of people, but I'm not so sure that the educational path is as clear for those folks as it is as it's been represented, for the select few.
Yeah. Well, and you made it sound like human nature. You simplified it in a lot of ways to be practical and applicable to these young people. Like, not just jump in and the more you fail, the more you learn, but also the people around you. If you find you like certain qualities in people, those are qualities maybe you like in yourself. And if you have things you don't like in other people, maybe they're mirroring for you things you don't like in yourself. And you kind of presented this picture of life sort of educating you along the way.
Well, if we open our eyes to there's no question how it works, right?
Yeah.
But by using that approach, Tom, what I'm trying to express really is, look, as often as you want to, you can interact with people, and don't interact with the same people that you've known for 50 years because they're not going to come up with something new. Meet new people that present old topics in a different fashion and so on.
Right.
And decide what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
And when you write down don't like or like, guess what? The ones that you don't like, you might want to take a close look at. Maybe you're projecting that dislike to others without even knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same thing on the positive side.
Yeah. Yeah, like in human development terms, your career is helping you grow as a personal and professional individual as well. Which I like that you have a department for personal development in your company, two professionals.
It's unusual, and I'd really like to see, in neither of the classes did I expound upon this, but we do have this department, and there are 2 people, full-time people in it. But 15 years before, no, 18, 20 years before we started this personal development department, we had what's called Operation Support Services, which is basically a therapist, not technically a therapist, but a therapist on all 3 shifts. And the reason I thought that would be helpful is because we all have baggage, right? Some days we've got to check 4 bags and 3 carry-ons, and other times it's just a knapsack that's half full. Right?
Yeah.
So it changes. But, within an hourly environment with the majority of our people, who wants to kind of like whine to their supervisor that you're having a bad day because Aunt Susie dropped in unannounced, going to be there for 10 days, or son or daughter flunked a test, and whatever it is.
Yeah.
So these people are people that are in a neutral position. Anybody can go talk to them whenever they want, and that way they're not burdening their manager with personal stuff.
Right.
So
right.
that's been great too.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. I mean, and just in terms of continuing the productivity of the place, right? Your manager's probably not the best person to go to for that stuff anyway.
And sometimes they're not the best person to tell you how to do your jobs either. That's another story.
Okay. So in between these words of wisdoms, you were telling stories, and you told this great story how you started the Chelsea Milling Company, and then you went on to pursue a boyhood dream and spent 20 years as a race car driver.
Yeah, it's. I look back and I went, you know what? The moon and the stars just happened to fall in the right place, and I think they do. These things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly, who the author is or what the reason is, but I do think that things happen for a reason.
Yeah. And
often we're not supposed to know what that is. Right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a surprise if we knew about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so, geez, I was way too old and no experience whatsoever. But the message that I took home and that I share with others when given the opportunity is, look, you may not be qualified for this, and you might be and you may not be. But if you don't quit, if you just keep trying, sooner or later you're going to get it right. And oh, by the way, on to the next thing.
Yeah. And 20 years later.
Yeah, 20 years like that.
And then you told the story of how you transitioned back to the family business, sort of the state of the affairs, what you took on, but also some of the changes you had to make or adjust to in yourself. I thought that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable kind of sharing the fact that I'm very imperfect and that even I need adjusting often, actually. And the striking thing about sharing is that one of the biggest lessons that I took away from, find how do I reinvent myself. In this case, it happened to be therapy, but there's a lot of other avenues, to get to the same end. If you don't ever make that effort, if you don't ever make the try, find something that works for you, well, then it really is the same old
Right.
every day.
Yeah.
So, self-improvement is not for the faint of heart, number one,
Sure.
but the depth and the level at which you can communicate with the things that you've learned, the pluses far outweigh the minuses.
Right.
Most people only change because they have to,
Yeah.
or they're told they have to,
Right.
but they're not given a choice.
Right.
Right? People don't, joyfully volunteer
Yeah.
to
Sign me up.
right.
Well, but you shared that, a race car is, the lack of emotions. You need to remove emotions in order to be at the top of your game. Whereas you entered the family business where emotions was the name of the game, and you had to sort of learn how to navigate that.
Well, and I did. I guess I was pretty good at suppressing them, and It's not fair for me to talk about myself, but I've probably gone overboard the other way.
Yeah.
I am guilty of sort of
Sure.
making sure that I cross the finish line, not just barely, but
Right.
4 feet by.
Yeah. Well, I love that, you said that the therapist asked you, like, I didn't ask you what you think about it, I asked you how you felt about it. And that's pretty striking, I guess, if you're not thinking or feeling in those terms. But
Well, the moral of that story was feelings. What did I do with them? They're around here someplace.
Somewhere.
Let me look under
That's
this pillow.
fine.
Let me
Yeah.
get above.
Yeah.
And so I guess I did a very successful job
Yeah.
in burying them, understanding that they can be dangerous.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bury them at a depth that I wasn't going to run into them.
Sure.
So it took a little longer to get them back up to the surface.
Well, but you also realized that at the time, at least, with the state of affairs that Jiffy Mix, Chelsea Milling Company was in, that you needed to really come in and help it establish and turn around and think about, the long-term survival.
I did because no one was doing that, Tom. And, this is maybe a little bit more personal than I ever intended to be. When I realized how big that gap was, I was bewildered to how could that be?
Yeah.
And I've never taken the opportunity to point fingers one way or another. But
Right.
I mean, the signs were so obvious if you know what in the world you're looking for.
Yeah.
But if number one, if you're not looking, that's a sin.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you're looking for, that's a problem
Yeah.
that you need to research too.
Yeah. Well, I think that really touched our students, and a couple of them referenced that. They really appreciated your gesture. They said you were, selflessly taking responsibility for that, and that inspired them. So thank you for sharing that story.
You're welcome. Fun. I enjoyed myself today.
Yeah. Also, too, you have that whole transition from racing to running the company. You have also quoted saying, you don't make decisions about family with your head, and you don't make decisions about business with your heart. So you have all of these things. And I think you also shared with the class that, a family business comes with a whole nother set of challenges that make it really challenging and hard. So I thought those are some good lessons too.
Well, who knows where they're going to end up next year or 10 years or 15 years from now. I think that there were several hands that were raised about family businesses. And I think most of them were first generation and so on.
Right.
But the point that I like to make without scaring people away is that it virtually is impossible to have an objective conversation when there's a biological connection.
Yeah.
And that resonates with people.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense intuitively, and then to map that onto a business setting, you have a whole different lens and a way to look at it.
Yeah. And, I wish I could find a way, or someone could find a way to enhance the percentage of businesses that make it, family businesses that make it to the second generation. Only 26% make it, which means 74% fail.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
That is frightening.
And by the way, family businesses employ more people than anybody. So with a smaller team or less staff or whatever, the American dream of paddling your own canoe,
Right.
is alive and well.
Yeah.
And maybe it won't ever change. If it becomes easy, everybody would do it, and then the quality would dissipate.
Yeah. Well, and you also said that when you got there wasn't processes and procedures, and there wasn't even a maintenance plan for the equipment, and and now you're putting out, I think you said 1.6 million boxes a day.
Yeah. Well,
which is hard to fathom.
That is a big number, but what's more importantly is we know everything about every one of those. We know everything about every one of those boxes.
Yeah.
Because now we have computer systems and the latest and greatest equipment that gives us information about what's going on. And so really, there are three things about any business, Tom. There's facilities, systems, and people. Any problem's going to fall under one of those. Those are the three pyramids.
Yeah.
And we've had packaging equipment since late 1930s.
Wow.
Well, we kept that stuff into the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it was still packaging equipment, but it wasn't telling us anything, and we were, you've got to upgrade, and you've got to understand what your facilities, what they're good for, and what they're not good for.
Yeah.
And it's a constant kind of juggling act of getting these three things in harmony.
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about like a newspaper, 106, boxes a day, that's, you have deadlines, right? And students, I think one student in the first class asked you what translated the leadership lessons from racing days to running the business. And I loved what you said. It was this idea about performance and meeting deadlines and having everything, the preparation, the preparedness, the being on. Like the date doesn't change. 1.6 million boxes doesn't change. But you said that brought over the most. Like, this is our deadline. This is what we're trying to meet. We're going to do it. We're not going to let it down. And I thought that was kind of a remarkable translation of skill there.
Well, I'm still a kid. I still have a lot to learn. I do. I mean, I do.
Well, that was one of your, 8 or 9? Life, you'll learn, as long as you're alive, you're learning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come by.
Yeah.
I just want to not miss the opportunity to say so.
And it was incredible. I mean, I got a little bit of goosebumps because part of our Cleary Mind is communications, and you had a big part on communications. I love that you walked the student through this journey of, I don't know, more collaborative approach. Instead of just talking about a collaborative approach, you walked through this journey of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stages. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was very impactful.
Well, those can be thought of as stages, or they could also be thought of as personalities, right?
Styles, yeah.
Yeah, and so the person that is telling the teller, as example, I'd like to say they're the personality of, they're like the bully,
Yeah.
right? It's loud. They never make any eye contact. They don't give a hoot what you think, and this is just the way it is. Well, that's not a sender and a receiver.
Yeah.
That's a sender
Yeah.
and no receiver.
Right.
And so every one of those has certain characteristics, but the best of all is collaboration. And what I believe and what we believe is that collaborating with people is not easy because you have to sacrifice your own choices for somebody else or for something else. Well, a lot of us are pretty selfish, right?
Yeah.
We think we've got it all together and so on, and I've got to come to believe, well, no, we don't have it all together. I don't think I've got it all together.
Yeah.
I enjoy the fact of, trying something new.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's positive. Hopefully it's going in the right direction, not the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But you have to understand what's north, south, east, and west.
Right.
One we don't even have time to talk about is, we talked a little bit about content and context. How much time could we spend with eye contact, with body movements and facial expressions and all of that kind of stuff? They send messages too. That are just as strong as a word.
Sure. Well, I mean, and I love how you took them on a journey. They read examples of telling and selling and testing and consulting all the way up to collaborating and got to feel what it was like to be in each one of those scenarios. And I think what stood out for me is I see with young people when they're given that level of authority or leadership right off the bat without any training, typically people step into a telling kind of command and control default mode.
Yeah.
And I liked how you sort of labeled that as the most brutal form of communication. Like you gave it a brutality and a bulliness because it's not inclusive and
it's an acceptable approach if it's command and control, and which was developed, for
in the right settings.
Yeah, but it's not good for communicating.
Right.
And how are you going to seek somebody's opinion when the very words that you use to ask them are loud, assaultive, and you can say something. Well, I asked so and so.
Yeah.
Well, those words maybe came out of your mouth, but you offended everybody.
Yeah.
Last 10 miles.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't just give one or two examples of either or, you gave a journey. And I like the collaborative approach was, kind of putting an issue on the table, inviting everybody to be part of that group, and let's work this out together and figure out a solution. Because I think in knowing you, that's how your company operates. Like that's how you solve problems with the people that are working on them.
Yeah, we solve problems with people, not for people.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I hope that your students had a good day. I think they did. And, I apologized a couple times.
Yeah,
maybe a four-letter word.
It's part of life.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the students said, can you come back? They asked me when you were looking the other way, can he come back every week? We want him to talk every week. So they loved you. Yeah. And I know sometimes it's hard in the world of digital when they're doing all their assignments to get, that feedback, but I could sense it knowing them now, and we'll get you lots of feedback after we debrief in the next class. So,
Sweet.
Howdy, thanks a million. This was awesome.
You bet. I enjoyed
Learned a
it.
ton, and only through you could we get this wisdom and knowledge. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and it was good to reconnect with you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%.